Hey everybody, this is Volen in Pursuit of Art. I want to talk to you today about something that should hopefully be helpful for beginners, or at least it will be something that they encounter on an almost daily basis. It's going to be an issue with pretty much every piece of content that they consume. With pros, this is going to be something like, dude, what the hell did I just watch? Because pros will have pretty much developed a filter when they consume media, when they watch tutorials, when they read books. They'll have a much larger framework and be able to really interpret and understand what it is that they saw, what's important, what they need to get out of it, what they need to ignore, what's something that is really crucial, what's design, what's perspective, what's lighting, what stroke that the guy just did, what purpose does that serve. It could be accidental or it could be very important. A pro will be able to distinguish that. A beginner, though, is like in the middle of a swamp. I'm speaking from personal experience here. I remember when I first started out, everything seemed important, or at least everything that I saw seemed like it's okay, everything needs to be done. Or like those paint strokes that are in the corner right now, those are probably making the whole piece work. Like, this must be the most important thing. You can't really judge or you can't really filter what it is that you're seeing. And the thing about tutorials is that a lot of them have been done by people that have been doing this stuff for a very, very long time. So you're dealing with two problems here. It's the curse of knowledge, basically. What that means is that once you've learned something and once you've known it for a very long time, you can't unknow it. You can't put yourself in the shoes of someone that doesn't know that thing. Imagine trying to teach someone or trying to really convey the feeling of what it's like to breathe or what it's like to be able to talk. Imagine if someone asked you, somehow, alien, imagine if they asked you, what's it like to talk? Like, what does it feel like? Why do you need to talk? Like, why are you saying all these things instead of just thinking them? Why do you feel the need to share them with another person? Why put them in their head? How would you explain that? Or how would you even explain how you make words, right? Because that's much closer to drawing, because it's both just a physical, I don't want to call it, drawing is a skill, but it's a physical phenomenon. Both speaking, making vibrations with your throat, and then also maybe making vibrations with your hand or just making shapes. Both are just physical phenomena. How would you explain those? What does it feel like? To a beginner, they're very acutely aware of what drawing does not feel like or what it feels like to them. To a pro, though, they have so much more info stored in their brain, mental representations they're called, which that's going to be for another video. That's what they have. They have so much more information that basically communication between beginner and pro is kind of like this. Pro is just, okay, this is what you need to do, this is what I'm thinking about. Beginner hears the words, like they understand what they're saying, but at the same time, their skill level just kind of allows them to cruise over here, maybe over here. It's just a huge miscommunication between what is actually required to improve and what is being communicated to you, just because skill is stored non-verbally in the brain. So you can explain what it is that you're doing, and someone could hear it and try and think about those same things and try and do those same things, and they're gonna fail utterly. I'm sure almost everyone here has followed along with a tutorial or just looked at someone that says, oh, it's just super simple, you just do this and you just do a little bit of that and you do a little bit of this and then it's done and then it's awesome, and then you do it and you just have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's just, what is that? I'm sure it's happened to a lot of us. So when I was doing my notes for this video, I really discovered that I'm trying to just smash together like 4 or 5 different topics. I'm hoping I do an okay job. I'll probably cover more in separate videos, but for now, what we're going to cover here is I'm going to talk to you about how, by watching tutorials, which is pretty much the most base element for how you improve, right? It's where the knowledge is. Going on YouTube, all the courses that are online right now, you go to the pros, right? You go to where the people are that can do the thing. But the thing that is ultimately the vehicle to make you better could also serve to confuse you, because you're not sure exactly what you're seeing. You can't interpret. A beginner does not have the same filters for what's important, or even understanding the pieces and how they come together. So they can see random things or interpret something that's very deliberate as random just because it's either not communicated overtly that this is deliberate, or that it's a system that the pro has built in their brain over years and years of practice that it's now been deployed and utilized. To the beginner, they might just listen to the guy ramble about random stuff and then paint at the same time and then think, oh, it doesn't really require a lot of thought, or it's not very difficult. Like, I should be able to talk and it should just come out. Like, basically that's the essential feeling is, hey, it should just come out, because that's how this guy is making it seem. He's cooking and he's exercising and his dog is attacking him, but he can just make it come out. So it should be easy. So I have 3 things that I've labeled over here. One is presentation, and it's how tutorials are structured in the first place. This may seem strange, but a lot of the habits that I've seen in people and a lot of the habits that I've picked up myself are a direct result of how tutorials are presented. The fact that they're super sped up, the fact that there's no prep. A lot of times when I work with people for the first time, when I get like a new student or someone checks in for a session, what I see is just, hey dude, just slow down. You didn't think about anything, you didn't prepare at all, you just went right in. Because that's how tutorials are presented for the most part. 2 is going to be communication. It's very difficult. Like I said, with the curse of knowledge, it's very difficult for a pro to be able to communicate with a beginner. The curse of knowledge doesn't really allow them to be able to position themselves in that same situation again. What's it like to make vibrations with your vocal cords and say words, right? What's it like? What's that skill feel like? They can't ever go back to not knowing what it's like. And a lot of the people that are top level now have started doing a lot of this stuff when they were kids, right? When they were super young. So they've been living with this thing for a super long time. So at some point it just becomes second nature. It's disappeared as a logical construct. They've internalized it. It's gone through the lower regions of their brains. It's no longer accessible to language. You know, like when you ask something, dude, how did you just do that? And they're like, I don't know, I just did it. Does that ever happen to you? You can ask anyone that does any job, hey, how did you just do that? I don't know. What they've done is that they've done something for a very long time. They have basically internalized the skill, and it's gone into their basal ganglia or some other nether region of the brain where it's been automated, sped up, and it's just ready access. They don't have to think about it. And then I suppose the actual memory, the prefrontal cortex at some point is probably just pruned that conscious connection. Like, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to explain it to myself. It's just something that's useful in the environment. We use this often. Store it and then recall it when it's important. But that's basically been relegated to kind of the backseat driver, right? It's gone into the nether regions there. So you don't have to think about it. They do it for you. It's like a guy with a stick in the backseat just pushing your radio buttons, or just like, okay, let's do the turn signal here, and just smacks you in the nose. Third thing is going to be interpretation. And this is basically when you're looking at a tutorial and you're seeing a ton of info and the guy is talking about what they're talking about, and you're looking at their work though at that time and you're trying to figure out what they do. But if you don't have the actual skill ladder developed, like you don't know how the pieces fit together, you don't know what it is that they're doing, all you end up with is a kind of just very surface illusion of, hey, this, what it is that they're doing. Like, perspective is done by just putting down a ton of random strokes, and lighting is done by just, so when you're beginning your sketch, you just make a ton of like bright stuff, and that later on is going to translate into the lighting. So I should probably put a lot of bright value color things early on. Where do I put them? Like, I put them all over. They don't look like lights now. How come his or hers? How come the instructor's stuff started to look like lighting? How come their pile of goo that they started with is now like a huge orc type thing? And how come mine is just a pile of goo? What's that for? So these are kind of the 3 things that I'm going to try and talk to you about. Presentation, communication, interpretation. Like, these are the things that may go wrong as you're watching tutorials. Again, as a beginner, you'll be looking at these things daily. You'll probably be making interpretations of everything you're trying to watch and trying to best figure out where it fits and how the pieces are put together, because there really isn't a good roadmap anywhere out there. I will try and make a couple of videos to just show you how the pieces fit together, you know, the different skills, different components, what's built on top of what, etc. But still, experience ultimately is the thing that really just shows you, hey, I've been wrong over here, I went down this path, didn't work out at all. It's actually, this skill is used like this, or it's even built in a completely different way to how I thought it's built. And final thing before I dig into this stuff a little bit more, this is very difficult. It's very difficult because it's very opposed to how we've normally been learning. School learning is just book learning. You have to just read a bunch of stuff, say it, and then forget it. That's it. And that counts as learning. And when you've been trained in that way of learning for 12, 15, however many years you go to school for, when you've been trained in that way and people praise you for it and they reward you for it and they reinforce that in you, and furthermore, you're never exposed to a different mode of learning, it's very difficult to transition after. A lot of times when I work with people, their major thing is, hey, I need to know more. And in fact, no, you don't need to know more, you need to do more. And they're basically pushing to go back to the old paradigm for, I need to learn more stuff. Like if I can do it, it's obvious that I don't know something. So I need to know something to do this. And it's actually, no, you have enough info. This is more like a workout. Like learning art is more like training as an athlete rather than reading as a scholar. The reading is important. It will ultimately translate into huge differences in terms of whoever's done their reading and research will, if they also practice, perform better. They'll have more ideas. But really, the beginning stages are way more rooted in the practice, and way later down the line, do you get to combine it with knowledge. You first have to earn the tools, then you can combine them with your intellectual prowess, because everyone starts with ideas. They want to express something, they want to convey something, but at the same time, if your resources are lacking, and by resources it's basically your tools, if you can't communicate visually but that's what you want to do, you first have to put that structure in place. And if you don't push through those few years that you're doing that, you never get to earn the right to communicate like that. And it's also just really great for you. It's good to get your ass kicked by a lot of things because you really learn how to handle stuff. So let me dig into these a little bit more. I remember when I was first starting out, one of the first ever courses that I got my hands on was from Glenn Vilppu, like an awesome guy. I think at the time of that course he was already maybe in his 70s, I think. And he was instructing, I think he was at Disney or somewhere like that. I actually found more courses from him later on, where he's in his 40s, I think. And he was still instructing at Disney. So basically this guy has been very, very skilled for a very long time. So he's been doing this mostly probably his entire life. And he's just built such a huge, vast mental library, such an understanding of the skill. And I remember starting and watching him, some of the things that he would say were like, so feel the twist of the torso, or like feel the contortion that's happening here, like feel the pelvis, feel the back. And I remember I'm doing this because I just remember how he would draw his pencil like over the paper that he had set up. And I just remember like he would like just do these little twists and he would say these things that meant like just nothing to me, because I'm trying to think about it. I'm trying to feel the back. I'm trying to feel the torso. I'm trying to vividly imagine, what does it feel like to be a back? You know, I'll go like one step further. Like, what's it like to be a back? So you get like covered with t-shirts all the time, and you're like really laying against stuff when people are sleepy, and like you're super broad, and when you're walking you kind of, I suppose you feel like the world is going away from you instead of you going towards stuff. So like that's what a back is like that's what it feels like to be a back. I'm feeling the back. And obviously it didn't improve my drawing at all, and I didn't understand what he was doing until like a year or two later, like just rewatching the course later on. I'm like, so that's how he's doing it. Like he knows about this stuff first, like he's built all these mental representations in his brain. He knows, he's drawn them hundreds of thousands of times. He knows exactly what they look for. He knows the structure of the thing. He knows perspective. He knows how to position it. Not only does he know perspective, but he's probably memorized each and every shape from each and every angle, because he's just experienced it so much. So like, okay, I'm kind of sort of getting it now, but it took me 2 years to figure it out, and I still tried to feel the back when I was first doing it. By the way, when I'm saying all these things, I'm not trying to say this as any sort of slant on the instructor, like these people are amazing. I'm just saying that as a beginner trying to learn from them, your interpretation is going to be way different to a pro's interpretation. So the beginning stages are the most difficult, right? Also, beginners are the most underserved demographic of all. Most tutorials are made for other people that can understand what the instructor does and says. Beginners don't really have a lot of tutorials. You might just get like isolated things, like you'll get shading, you'll get 1-point perspective, you'll get 2-point perspective, you'll get stuff like that, but how do you combine them? And furthermore, like, how am I supposed to use them? Am I supposed to just redraw stuff, like look at stuff and just analyze it and do it? Am I supposed to do this thing on the fly, automatic, like is it just supposed to come out of my head? Or are they looking at stuff that I don't know about? How's it supposed to work? How do these pieces come together? Like, this is what this video is essentially for. It's beginners learning from pros. It's not saying anything bad, because I don't have anything bad to say about any of the instructors. They're amazing. I learn so much from them. I just go and rewatch. Every couple of years, I'd rewatch everything. But as a beginner, you really have to be careful, because you may end up going down a lot of wrong paths. Like I've said before, beginners are like, this is also the highest likelihood of you quitting at the beginning stages. No one gets good and then quits, or very few people would. So beginner stages, most difficult, hardest to navigate, very little instruction, very hard to figure out what to do. So that's why beware when you're watching all these things. You really have to be vigilant about how you interpret stuff, about how directly you're taking the information in. And you really have to try and first figure out what are the skills and what are the basic components that I need to get. So like I said, Glenn Vilppu, watching the videos, no idea how to feel the back, couldn't even redraw like the things that he was doing. I was like that much of a beginner at the time, so I couldn't understand it, and I was trying to feel the back and trying to do all this stuff. So I was trying to do it from imagination, where it wasn't really my place to do it from there. But this is what the guy does, right? This is what he says, and that's what he produces. So I listen to what he says, I see what he produces, I assume that it's a direct correlation. So feel the back and try and imagine it, or try and understand it, or look at a lot of backs and try and do it again. But it didn't work. It never worked. Like, I never got to that stage when I was looking at them then to even be able to understand how to utilize this stuff. And this is the core, knowing how to utilize. And more habits that I picked up is from watching Feng Zhu. So like watching him, if you're a beginner, there's literally 0% chance that you could understand what he says. I think his videos should be in some sort of alien language until you're into year 2 or 3, just because it really doesn't matter what he says at that time. Because what he says will be, because he's so good, it'll be so simplistic. Like, he'll describe his laptop or something. And you're like, okay, 4 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte CPU, okay, I'll go get it. And then you'll have it. Or like, what tablets use? He's got a Wacom 3. Why do I know? Because I've watched them all. And I've thought about the tablet. I thought about, okay, so he doesn't like the micro lag that his cursor has. I've thought about that too. Didn't help. Neither of those helped. And I watched what he does, and he would just do crazy scribbles all over the place and put random value, put random whatever, but then be able to pull off insane landscape, insane character, insane whatever, right? So he would just pull it off. No problem. Didn't work for me. Never happened. What I tried to do is, okay, I'm looking at Feng Zhu do his thing. I'm looking at him work. Let me try and do the exact same thing he's doing. So let me look at every brush stroke. Let me listen to what he says. So he doesn't, like, there's kind of no planning. He says that he just starts and he'll just see where he ends up. So, okay, I'll try the same. And I'll kind of look at his strokes. I'll try and mimic them. And I'll do the same. Okay, mine is horrible. What happened? I don't hear any cues from what he's talking about that could help me figure out what happened. Basically what happened is that he has, I think, almost 20 years experience now, just working in the industry. So what happened is that he has 20 years of knowledge to draw upon. And again, just equating this back to, this is more akin to being an athlete, not a scholar. So he's not read 1,000 more books and not practiced. No, he's actually lifted, let's say, millions of pounds or kilos, whatever you prefer, of weights. And his brain is, if you could see it, like, I always say to people, when you're looking at someone do something and they're amazing at it, because there's no visual cue. Like you can look at someone lifting weights and you can know they lift weights. Like some skills, just you can look at someone and know that they're good at something. But you can look at an artist and like, okay, a guy's just skinny and pale. He's probably stayed in his basement for the last 70 years just drawing stuff, and he didn't look like he's ever been outside. Doesn't probably do many things, I don't know. Then all of a sudden you just spit out crazy galaxies of things just on paper. And then you're gonna do the same. Doesn't work. There's no physical representation. So like think of Feng Shui as having like 4 brains or something just hovering around his head and just feeding him information, because that's literally what he's developed for art. So I'll have to speed up here a bit because we're running pretty high on time, as we normally do. We're running pretty long, but just hit me up with some questions. Like let me know if and what exactly you'd like me to explore further, and I'll be more than happy to just split those in more videos when I know what you guys relate to better. So it'll help me know what exactly to target with these things, like what's most interesting or what's most important. So a couple things to just go over and just try and, okay, those are the problems, but what do you do with them now? So try and give some sort of solution if possible. So again, when you're looking at tutorials, that's your main source of knowledge, right? You look at what the people do, and those are the people that you want to work like. But one huge thing, and this is a separate video really, so this is going to be its own thing, is skill is built differently to how it's practiced. So when you're looking at someone just work, and most tutorials are someone working, when you're looking at someone working, you're actually not figuring out how to build that skill. When you're watching a tutorial like that, you actually figure out how to deconstruct what they're using. So instead of just taking everything that you see, if you're watching someone work at face value, your job actually becomes having to deconstruct what they're doing and not saying. So this person might say, I'm thinking about just the composition right now. Your job then becomes, what are they even doing? So are they thinking about the composition by putting down shapes? And if so, those shapes, are they in perspective? How do they build the perspective? Is there a grid on there? Most likely not. For a lot of people that are high level, they wouldn't do that. So, okay, so is their perspective active right now? So are the brush strokes going in a certain direction? Are they giving you a sense of space? Also, are they using color or value right now? If they're using color, are they trying to build the lighting scheme right now? Or are they kind of just exploring, what is it that they're doing exactly? And what brush are they using? Are they using one thing about Feng Shui, for instance, is he was using the fuzzy brush to basically just feed his brain a bit more. But when they're using that, why are they using it? Like that brush that they're using, is it giving them a soft edge or a hard edge? And if it's whichever one it is, why is that the one that they're using? Are they using this purely to spark their brain to be able to riff off of? Or are they actually going to use those same strokes as they were used there later on? So are they going to keep what they're doing right now? Or is this purely ideation of stuff? Are they basically just exploring, or are they building right now? Because those are two very separate, very different processes. Exploration, normally how you try and come up with a design or something, is very messy. You try and not constrain it with too much building. But then once you're done, when you have to build it, you actually do it in a very different way. And again, for a beginner, I'm sorry to say, this would be close to impossible. But try your best to just deconstruct what it is that you're seeing. And don't just never assume that it just comes out. It just does not. It comes out after 5-10 years of practice. That's when it can start coming out. It does not come out when you're starting out. What comes out when you're starting out, you've already seen it. We don't need to talk about it here. So when you're looking at stuff, the presentation, consider that. Is it sped up? How long? What's the actual duration? I've seen tutorials that have run, and actually the first thing I ever uploaded on YouTube here is 45 hours. But it's in 45 minutes. So you don't actually get to see the person get up, walk away, come back, rethink, get rid of stuff, do it again, go. Because when it's sped up, it's almost negligible. An hour goes by like this. And that first video that I uploaded, 1 hour is a minute. So a lot of stuff can get erased, gotten rid of, and just repainted in that time. But it just takes a minute. So it's almost the illusion that everything lasts a session. A surprising number of people will only sit down for a session and have the demand, when I say surprise, I mean myself too, will have the illusion that you have to finish everything in one session, because that's what you normally see. A tutorial is one session. Someone sits down, does a bunch of stuff, it's presented to you continuously, and then they're finished. You never get to see the person walk away and then come back, because actually closing a piece and coming back to it gives you almost 100% improvement after that, because you can work on it again. Like if it was crap when you first closed it, now you go in, now you refine it, you get yourself, you make it, if it was okay, it's now better than it was before, 100% better. Let's say if you put that much work in, it could be 100% better. Then you close it again, then you go back in again, you can improve it again. So like sometimes it's not necessary that you suck. Sometimes maybe you're just not putting in enough time on these things. And that's why this stuff is so confusing, because when you first watch tutorials, they're presented in a certain format, in a certain way. If you've never done these things, if you don't have someone that's teaching you how to do them, then you really have no choice but to just internalize what you see. So you start repeating the same mode of working. Some people in courses that teach perspective will say, they'll teach you all the perspective and then they'll say, but when you're sketching, you can disregard perspective. But then the only time you see them sketch, they're sketching in perspective. So what does it mean? What do you mean when you say disregard perspective? Do you just do a little bit of perspective, or do you completely not think about it? And then you see someone just go like this. Okay, so that's what no perspective means. You just go for shape, go for something different. Don't evaluate that at all, just look for something else. But for a beginner, again, that has no idea how to draw or even how to do any geometry, to think about design is just such a higher level skill than just drawing and creating some basic form and geometry. Like those are here. Design is like just, it's off. It's way off. So trying to design when you're like way here, or just watching or learning about someone talk about design and you're way down here and you can't even reproduce what they do, but then they're actually explaining to you stuff that's over here. It just does not relate. It does not translate. Despite the fact that you may have the best intention, that you really want to learn, that you want to do a great job, it's just not going to happen. So number one is presentation. The way tutorials are structured, do not build those habits of it's a continuous session, I need to do everything sped up. You really need to come up with a process. It's never just going to come out. Number two, communication. What does the instructor say? And if you can, just picture that they have another 4 brains, and if you can't do what it is that they're doing as well, you really have to try and deconstruct the skill and figure out what actually prompted them to get to that level. Like, I can make a video that's 60,000 hours long and I'm still not going to get to cover everything to the depth that I want to cover it to. It's just that these end up getting too long and I have no way to expand on these further, so I'm kind of going to have to close these out at the point that I don't think they're really developed. But anyway, again, hit me up with questions. Let me know what I can dig further into. And then 3 is just your own interpretation of what you're seeing. Like when you're just, if you turn off the sound, for instance, and you're just looking at the person doing what it is that they do. When you're a beginner, you have no idea what's important, like we said before, no idea what's important and what's just an accident. Like when you're just watching the work develop, it's not built sometimes, if it's design especially, it's not built linearly. It's going to be built from all over the place. Like there could be photo bashing, there could be just crazy cloudy brush just so they can try and read some form into that thing. They're not going to use the edges, they're not going to use the info, maybe not even the value, but they may just be using that to just spark their brain for something. So your interpretation of what's important, like I said, when I was watching Feng Zhu, and I would just see him do crazy scribbles, and I would try and do crazy scribbles, I couldn't figure out I didn't know, and this is the root of the issue, is what I call skill compression. When you're seeing someone that's really good do something, they're normally compressing a stack of skills together. So they're taking 4 or 5 things and they're just smashing them together. So that's why I say there's no chance that a beginner looking at Fang can understand what he does. It's just 0 chance, which is why he may as well speak alien language, because he's an alien. He may as well speak alien language because he's doing perspective, design, camera, lighting, shot design, everything. He's doing it on the fly. And when you're a beginner and you have no, like, okay, you're doing perspective, so where is your vanishing point, let's say? Or like, your shot design, so how do you reposition the camera? Because it's 2-dimensional, how does that work? Or lighting, but I don't know, where is your light source? How did you just do that? How does a light source I don't know, how does it affect everything else? How would you know how it affects everything? What's its intensity? How do I study this? I like that voice. There's no way. Like, there's literally no way to understand what he does, because he's just compressing many skills together. He's drawing upon huge banks of stored information, stored shape, stored lighting, stored so many things that he's seeing, he's practiced, he's done. That's what he does. He does it on the fly as well. So one action has within it 5, 6, 10 things that are just injected into it. You have virtually no chance as a beginner to even understand what it is that he does. So it's really key. Try and deconstruct the skill. Never assume that if you just repeat the same steps, you're gonna get the same thing. You may get the same thing, but you won't build a skill, so it's still irrelevant. Like, you can have a nice image at the end of it, but you don't really have the skill that built the image. It's really confusing, guys. It's really tough. It's even tough trying to talk about this stuff because a lot of it is nonverbal. A lot of it is just trying to go in there and figure out what are the big problems that are coming up all the time that are never mentioned. Like, you can see thousands and thousands of hours of tutorials, and I'm pretty sure none of this stuff will never be mentioned. No one will say, okay, so I'm just drawing upon years of experience right now as I start without preparation, because I'm pretty confident that I've done this thing before many times and I know the relevant aspects of this problem, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just draw upon these now as I start. No, you're probably just gonna get some guy, okay, so I start with no idea here, and it's awesome flower unicorn over there. It's painted Christmas turkey over the Santa, elves and Darth Vader fighting the corner there. Huge giant explosion, rocket ship, Donald Trump. It's magic. Transform into a battleship. Okay, we're done. That's it for this tutorial. See you next week. Thank you for your support. Right? That's kind of how it goes. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could do a better job of just putting more into these, but it's just, even as I start, I'm like, dude, this can expand infinitely with just how many things are in there. If there's one thing I could leave you with, is do not underestimate art, because art, like, think of martial art, right? These things are and could be life and death. Like, that's how people practice them. When they add the word art to something, it gets transformed. It becomes something that is not masterable easily. A martial art is not learned in a week, and you can't watch a YouTube move of someone do something and then you now know martial arts, right? You need to test it, you need to grapple with that thing, you need to struggle with it, you need to internalize it, you need to test it in many different iterations, you need to find where it works, you need to find where it doesn't, even when it seems like it's the best solution. So I'm gonna try my best to do as often as I can a video for you guys going over some of these things. Your feedback is super necessary though, so I know what resonates with you guys and what doesn't. Also, what length the video is okay for you. That will be also a pretty good thing to know. I actually have it in my brain that I'm going for about 20 minutes. I see I'm at about 40 now. I'll probably cut some of it out, but that's where it's at. So, hoping this was helpful to you. You can find me on Instagram. I try and post regularly. I'm trying to build a DeviantArt thingy. There's also a lot of all the links are in the description. You can find the portfolio. You can go have a look through the blog. A lot of written stuff there that's actually not on here. Some stuff useful, especially for learning about how to learn, how your brain works, things like that. You can find the sketchbook with just from complete suck horribleness until now. So hopefully that'll be a useful guide for you guys that are starting out. What else is there? New videos coming soon. Comment, let me know what you like about these, what you don't. Everything is useful. And I'm seeing a lot of like just awesome people coming around. Like, the comments are just really great. Like, a lot of people just coming by to say that they found them useful, or you know, that it helped them with something. That's all. And I see a lot of people go and comment on other people and try and help them with their stuff. Like, I don't care what numbers there are on the vids. What I care about is that there seems to be like a really cool community forming, and I'm really, really happy about that. I'm really thankful for it, and thank you guys for building that. And thank you for watching, if you managed to stick it out to the end. Okay, I wish I could redo the video, like just do another one about talking about all these things over, because I feel that that's how much more there is left. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.